How big does your pension pot need to be? The answer comes down to how big your income needs to be. A basic retirement income doesn't actually need to be that big. Remember, you've likely nearly paid off your house and sent the kids off packing by the time you can legally draw your pension. Which.co.uk says the average pensioner spends just 12.5 grand per year.
Using an inflation-linked lifetime annuity from Aviva, shockingly you'd need a pension pot of £700,000 to achieve this. However, the average private pension pot for 55 to 65-year-olds only stands at £105,000, which translates into a meagre £1,900 income using an inflation-linked annuity.
The pathetic returns on annuities means that if you're still young, you either need to start ramping up your monthly pension contributions big time, or know how to squeeze every last penny out of your pension pot by using the stock market.
In this video, we'll show you how you can triple your pension income by trusting in the stock market. And for all you under 55s out there, hopefully get you thinking about whether you're putting enough aside for retirement in the first place. Let's check it out. Welcome to moneyunshackled.com, the investment and finance channel and website that sets you and your finances free.
That was Andy and I'm Ben, and if you like what we say, hit the like button and click subscribe. The new approach to pensions. It used to be that on retirement day, you would legally have to buy an annuity with your pension pot. No longer. You still can, but the returns are a joke. The annuity approach pays you an income by swapping your pension pot for an insurance product. It's the low risk, terrible return way of guaranteeing a basic income.
How basic? Well, to confirm what we suspected about annuities, we ran a quote through Aviva for the average UK pension pot size of £105,000 and were quoted a £1,900 annual income, inflation linked. That's equivalent to a 1.8% rate of return, but with all your capital surrendered to the insurance company. Don't let them have it.
The new approach to pensions is the drawdown method, continuing to hold investments within your pension and drawing an income from them, rather than seeking certainty from insurance products. The drawdown method weighs likely market returns against likely lifespan and trusting capitalism to see you through. The rest of this video assumes that we're using the drawdown approach.
Risks of the drawdown approach. If you get the accumulation stage a bit wrong for a while, you can always course correct. But in the withdrawal stage, being old and possibly infirm, you probably can't just go back and get a job if your pension income is insufficient to live on. You're stuck with the cards you've dealt yourself.
You also need a plan for managing longevity risk, the risk that your cash runs out before you pop your clogs. And finally, there's sequence risk.
Sequence risk, the risk of a bad first decade. Getting a good rate of return is more important in the early years of retirement. We know the stock markets average around 5% returns after inflation. That's 8% nominal returns minus 3% inflation, but that's just an average. Here's two scenarios. In both, we retire at the earliest possible age for our generation, age 58, and have a good innings until age 88.
In the first 10 years, your investments perform terribly, returning around 2% after inflation. We get to enjoy some good times in the decade before we croak at 8% over inflation. In the second scenario, it's the opposite, with the good times happening early on and our final years spent grumbling at the news and chuntering that the young'uns are messing everything up. Those damn kids.
So what's the difference? In scenario 1, we run out of money age 76. In scenario 2, we outlive our money.
Safe withdrawal rates. To make sure we don't run out of money, some clever boffin came up with the concept of a safe withdrawal rate, the amount you can cream off the top without damaging your pot. You might have heard about the 4% rule. This is the amount that you can safely withdraw from an American portfolio. It's the amount that you take out in the first year and then you adjust for inflation thereafter.
UK researchers might quote you closer to 3%. This is because the UK stock market has underperformed the US on average by around 1% over the last 100 years and bonds by around 0.5%. But these academics are living in the past. There's nothing stopping UK citizens from owning a majority of US market funds instead of UK ones.
Here's the UK funds version. There are 86 blocks of 30 years between 1900 and 2015. 1900 to 1929, 1901 to 1930, 1902 to 1931, and so on. We can see that the worst case real world scenario was 3.1%.
Pensioners using this rate would have survived financially through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, several recessions, and the risk of nuclear war without denting their portfolios at all. A similar history applies for US funds at a safe withdrawal rate of 4%.
Layering the cake. The clever fellow who came up with the safe withdrawal rate, Bill Bengen, suggested that it could be increased by adding layers like you would to a cake. You can take that 4% and ramp it up quite significantly by making your retirement plan smarter.
Layer 1, adjust for spending patterns. Older people spend less, it's a fact. New retirees in their 50s and 60s will spend about 50% more than they spend by age 80. We should recognise this in our retirement plan. Here's a tried and tested way to do this gradually. If you skip your inflationary income rise on every market down year, that's on average once every 4 years, history shows you could have added 0.6% to your initial withdrawal rate.
Layer 2, asset allocation. The 4% rule is based on a 50-50 split of equities to bonds, but the research says that you could sack off bonds entirely and have 100% allocation to equities instead. Blasphemy, I hear you say. Pensioners need bonds to stabilise their pension. Except, interestingly, the history of the last 115 years tells us that a 100% stocks portfolio would have survived with a higher safe withdrawal rate than one split 50-50 stocks to bonds, according to Bengen's models, 0.5% higher. But we do hear you. We probably wouldn't want 100% in equities in old age, even if it does have the best history. We'd sleep better at night with some diversification.
Layer 3, small caps. Further studies show that having 25% of your portfolio in small cap stock funds over the last 100 years allowed a higher withdrawal rate even in the worst years. Doing this would have in fact added 0.4% to the safe withdrawal rate.
Layer 4, probability. This is the final layer, and up until now the cake has been baked so as to remain whole for your lifetime. But this final layer accepts that you won't live forever. The longevity risk. By running 10,000 simulations of different periods of stock market history, it's been calculated that adding an extra 1% to your initial withdrawal rate gives an 83% chance that you won't run out of money.
That's increased to an 87% chance of success when we factor in the high chance of dying before age 88, i.e. 30 years after retiring at 58. That means 13% of the time this strategy will fail. In almost all cases, it will be due to sequence risk, the risk of a bad first decade.
So failure doesn't mean that you just keep ploughing ahead. You'd get an early warning from the markets and course correct in the early years. Maybe by downsizing your home or living less lavishly to make up the difference. Whether a much better lifestyle in retirement is worth the 13% risk of having to course correct is of course your call to make.
So, how big does your pension pot need to be? Let's add all that up. Starting with 4% invested largely in US funds, we add 0.6% to recognise we spend less when we're over 80. We add 0.5% because we've sacked off bonds. We add 0.4% for having a quarter allocation to small cap funds. And we add 1% in exchange for a 13% chance of course correction. That's 6.5% total, or £6,800 from the average £105,000 pension pot. Still not enough, but triple what you'd get with an annuity, £1,900, or double the 3.1% UK unadjusted withdrawal rate, £3,300.
Here's how big your pension pot needs to be under each approach to give you just £12,500 per year. The average 55 to 65 year old, therefore, has about half as much saved up as they actually need for a basic retirement, using the highest risk approach, and nowhere near the amount needed to use a low risk annuity.
Should you use such a high withdrawal rate? History tells us that this works, and the rates are designed to protect you from the worst case scenario. But you also have to be able to sleep easy at night, so maybe somewhere between 4 and 6.5% then, depending on your attitude to risk.
Ideally though, and what we plan to do, is to build up such a large pot that you don't need to withdraw anywhere near 4% and still live very comfortably. This only happens by hustling now.
Building the pot. Hopefully this study highlights the dangers of neglecting to build a sufficiently big pension portfolio. And it's important to have visibility over it so you can make sure your future is being managed properly.
We've both consolidated our old workplace pensions into SIPPs for just this reason. Left unchecked, they could otherwise be poorly managed by workplace pension providers, as we proved in this previous video, linked to below. By using a single SIPP to consolidate your old work pensions, you can tailor your growing retirement pot to your risk profile, reduce your ongoing fees, and have oversight of the total balance, so you can easily check if you're on track.
We looked at the nutmeg SIPP in that video, and we think it's one of the best for a set and forget strategy. You set the direction and they do the rest. We've arranged for you the first 6 months without fees when you open your SIP through the link on moneyunshackled.com, linked in the description below. Check it out and see if it's the right SIP for you.
Question of the day: how big is your pension pot? Is it going to be enough? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks for watching. On this channel we talk a lot about personal finance, investing and all things money. And if you want to see more great content, please click the subscribe button below.
This is moneyunshackled.com. See you next time.